what has happened yesterday. The Russian army launched a group strike, on Ukrainian defense industry, and you see the fuel storage being attacked, and then you see the attacks in the warehouse in Odessa and Nikolaev, and together with the embargo, with what's going on with the blockade of Odessa and Nikolaev. What is the current situation with the war, Stas, and what is the strategy of Russia as of today?
Well, Nikolaev isn't blockaded because it's landlocked. It's up north, but you have to take Nikolaev if you're heading down to Odessa because that's just the way road goes. There are 7 ports. There's Yuzhny, which is to the north, which means south, which is the north of Odessa, and there's 5 other ports to the south of Odessa, including 3 on the Danube. Um, you know, to answer that question, we have to go back a little bit to the 40 days of maximum pressure that the brain trust of Trump and Rubio and Hegseth came up with for their Ukrainian little whores or proxies, whatever you want to call them. And don't ever believe for a second that Zelensky is not an absolute puppet of Trump. Just because he had a little show in Washington a year and a half ago and how they all didn't get along, that's kabuki theater. Zelensky is absolutely he's absolutely a puppet of DC. Let's not for a second ignore that aspect, or the fact that Rubio a year ago came out and flat out said to the media, "Yes, this is a proxy war. We are fighting a proxy war against Russia." He admitted it. He's trying to ignore that point that he admitted. So, as he said in a press conference with Trump about a month ago, a little over a month ago, yeah, deep strikes in Russia. This is to escalate, to de-escalate. This will bring them to the table. And the escalation went first. They started striking ships in the Azov Sea. A lot of those ships weren't Russian. They killed Azerbaijanis. They killed Turks. They killed Greeks. Which, by the way, Azerbaijan continues to sell weapons because the leader of Azerbaijan, Aliyev, is a strumpet of Washington, and so is Turkey. Erdogan, no matter how angry Turks get in fact, there was a Turkish ship that was hit carrying grain, about 3 days ago. So no matter how many Turks die from Ukraine, Erdogan is at the end is also at least partially a strumpet of DC. And he's trying to put his rear end on every seat available. It's an amazing thing. I think he's now putting just a piece of his spine on every seat he can find because his butt isn't big enough to cover all of them. This is the same guy that was screaming about, "Oh, the evil Israelis are murdering Palestinians," and then sent 57 ships worth of oil to Israel. This is the people you're dealing with in the Middle East. Most of them are the scum of humanity. Don't ever listen to what they say. Look at what they do. They're all power hungry. They're all willing to sacrifice their own people. That's the way Washington likes them, and that's the way Washington set them up. So having said that, the Ukrainians, the Americans, let's just call it what it is. The Americans started attacking Russian ships and the British using maybe it was an operator, Ukrainian operator, but the targets and target information, live target information, was coming directly from U.S. Why Russia is not shooting down NATO and particularly American aircraft flying up and down the Russian edge of the Russian space and taking coordinates, I have no idea. Iran's done it multiple times. Russia's done it once, and they did it by a Su-35 flying in front of the Reaper and dumping fuel right into it, and it just took it out. Just clogged up its engines. When that didn't work, then they moved. Parallel, they started striking in the Mariupol, Rostov interstate using and other parts. I mean, I was down there 2 months ago. There are drones, these Hornet drones flying all over the place. They're AI powered. They're Teal's Palantir's drones. Teal is a war criminal. He's a terrorist. These drones are programmed when they start running out of charge. If they can't find a military target, they'll go after anything that moves. When I mean anything, they even had a case of a 11 and 12-year-old boy murdered by the American company Palantir riding a bicycle. So anything that moves, these animals have programmed these drones to murder. And these are animals. I mean, these are
You
there's
mean
no
the
other way to
program they're
describe it.
using is
Yes.
Palantir AI, the program they're using?
Oh, it's a Palantir-made drone.
Yeah.
It's not just a program; it's the drone itself. These Hornet drones. They started doing that. They started hitting civilian trucks up and down that highway and so on. And that was part of the pressure. Well, Russia responded by going Mad Max and creating technicals. A technical is a name that came up for Toyota pickups that were turned into gun trucks. You just you put a mount in the back bed of the truck, and then you can mount machine guns, recoilless rifles, anti-aircraft missiles, and so on and so on. Somebody tried to put an MLRS on there. That didn't work too much. We burnt the whole truck down with it. A little going a little over, but good try. But that was I think that was in Africa that they did that, or one of the. It was one of the. It wasn't Africa. It was one of the jihadists in Syria that tried to make it into an MLRS. Anyways, so Russia took a bunch of hatchbacks. They took out the hatchback portion, mounted a pivot point and a light machine gun with a machine gunner, and started escorting all the trucks. Started making ambush points on the roads. On that Mariupol road, they took out 1,400 drones. Apparently, these drones are actually pretty easy to shoot down with a light machine gun, and so on. So this has been the game. So Ukraine, after America via Ukraine, upped the ante on murdering civilians. They saved up masses of drones because these guys don't produce the amount of drones that are going into Moscow and other cities. So we're talking, sometimes up to 600 drones that get launched. These drones are getting taken out and they were coming in, and you maybe get 5, 7, 10 drones that actually make it the target. Usually, the target in this case is almost always a civilian house, single family residency, multi-story building, because that's easy to hit. Military targets are hard. They're hardened. They have anti-aircraft systems on there. They did manage to hit. They went after refineries, but again, as was said before, the issue with refineries is most of what they're hitting is fuel tanks they're allowed to burn out. They make a pretty picture for the West, but these fuel tanks are allowed to burn out and they're just replaced. So a refinery may be down for a week, maybe down for 2 weeks, but it doesn't stay down for long. Just like what happened in last August when they were screaming, it's down 40%. And then I think it was Reuters that came out and said, well, actually it's down 3%. We didn't do much for all the effort. And it's the same thing here. But what changed on this, Vladimir Vladimirovich already had authority from the parliament 2 years ago to go heavy. Just smother the Ukrainian state fully. He didn't. Now things have changed. Maybe he didn't do it because they were still hoping to have a conversation or some kind of deal with Trump. Maybe that the Europeans would change governments or would come to their senses. I don't know. Or maybe they just didn't want to do the damage. But America, via Ukraine, switched over to economic targets. They started taking the wild berries out. Again, the first couple of warehouses that they took were serious damage for these warehouses. But the propagandists, they're same state people. Oh, look, they took another warehouse. Ha 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 ha! They took another warehouse. The propaganda can't adopt the way people adopt. So what happened with wild berries? And I just came back 4 days ago from the south of Russia, 1,400 kilometers back to Moscow. One, fuel is everywhere. There's no fuel crisis anymore. There was never a fuel crisis. There were fuel difficulties 2 months ago. We're heading down. There's still some difficulty now. I mean, fuel's everywhere. And wild berry trucks are everywhere because all wild berries did was, one, Tatiana Kim, who's the billionaire owner of wild berries, even though by contract she didn't have to, she compensated everybody that lost anything in there. And she compensated the families of the employees that were injured generously. But what they did was after that, they just went back to a dispersed model of small warehouses. They evacuated the big warehouses. So sure, those big warehouses may still be getting hit, but there's really nothing in them. Because before, Wildberry's been around a long time. And before they had these mega warehouses, they had small dispersed warehouses. Sure, it might take you an extra day to get your sea urchin slime facial gel. There really is such a thing. Women will put almost anything on their faces for youth as long as you market it correctly. But any sludge. But yeah, but the economic targets weren't damaged the way the Western media was screaming. But what it did was it gave, socially, anyways, it gave the government a green light to go after Ukraine economically as well, seriously economically as well. So the first thing Russia did was it closed the ports. Well, that's not quite right to say. It destroyed the ports. Before it hit Odessa several times, these are more like warning shots. It hit once, hit twice on the port, but it was a systematic destruction. Odessa's ports and all these other other 6 ports have been systematically destroyed. Additionally, ships going in and out have all been destroyed. It doesn't matter if they're civilian or military. Because, by the way, a lot of these civilian ships are carrying military equipment into and out of Ukraine. Ukraine is the biggest arms hub in the world. American 777 howitzers, other heavy equipment, they go into these grain trucks, get covered by grain, then shipped to other parts of the world. Believe you me, the people in the Pentagon are getting kickbacks. They're not ignorant of what's going on. They're making money off of this. So Ukraine is the biggest hub of weapons, drugs, organs, children for child prostitution and organs, and any other sin you can pretty much think of. Ukraine is the hell of humanity, sponsored by the U.S. and the U.K. And the other Epstein elites of the West. So plus everything that was coming in is now being blocked. They can't get it in. And they can't get the grain out. They can't get the iron ore out. They can't get the sunflower seeds and sunflower oil out. That's $50 billion lost to the economy. $50 billion. Guess who gets to pay for that $50 billion? Not 15, 50.
Yeah.
America, open your wallets a little wider. You don't need that money. Zelensky and crew needs that. Well, of course, Congress will get a kickback of that too. Don't worry, they'll get to build another McMansion. Same thing goes for the British. Well, they're not citizens; they're servants of the crown, or subjects of the crown, and everybody else. The West has to build. The West is going to have to come up for money with that. Plus, a lot of the grain was actually heading to France and England, so food prices are going to go up, and Spain too. As the European Union's own production of grains, due to limitation and extremely high cost of fertilizer, is projected to be 40% lower. That's starvation. I mean, let's call it what it is. Sure, it's not going to be a whole country starving, more or less. It'll be lower class people and maybe lower middle class people starving, but that's starvation. That's what's here for the European Union. That's just how it is. This is the bed that they built for themselves, all fleas included. And the best they can do now is move it. They wanted to move it into Constanta, the very port that the Ukrainians tried to genocide the city, genocide by destroying the fertilizer and the oil storage facilities to try to get the Romanians into the war. Well, Russia's now started hitting the main bridge that leads into Romania from Odessa province, southern Odessa province. So that bridge is already damaged. It's a Soviet bridge, so they take a lot of hits, but it's damaged enough that.
Let me bring the map here because it's going to be easier for our audience to watch what you're talking about.
Absolutely, maps are great. I love maps. So go to Odessa, and that big isthmus south of Odessa. Go south. South, some more. Yeah, that big body of water right there. See that bridge? Yeah, that's being hit to control how much can be shipped to Constanta. And Consta, by the way, just understand, port facilities in Consta are 1/5, 20% of what they are in Odessa. And then there's 6 other ports that are no longer operational. The railroads, Russia's gone after the railroads, except instead of hitting railroads like it's done before, it's now gotten very active in taking out the locomotives. And by the way, Russian partisans, and those are local people, Russian locals in Ukraine, are also very active, and they're burning. There's been many incidents where they've taken out whole trains in Odessa Oblast, for example. 3 trains have been derailed with NATO equipment on it, or given out location details for Russian military strikes, or burning locomotives. In fact, I posted a video of that, one of those locomotives burning. That was posted by one of the Russian partisans working in Ukraine. And Ukraine has a very limited number of locomotives. Its electric grid is still heavily damaged, so it's got to use diesel locomotives, which it doesn't have as many of, because the majority were electric locomotives, and now they're having a lot of problems. So getting equipment in and out, getting grain and everything else out, at best they can ship 6 to 8% of what they produce by truck out of the country. And that, by the way, creates problems for Spanish, for Polish, Hungarian, Slovak, Czech farmers. Because a lot of that gets dumped. It may be heading to France, but really a lot of it gets dumped to the local markets. And we saw what happened last time they were doing that. There were roadblocks. Poles were beaten next almost to death, beating these Ukrainian drivers. And the Slovaks weren't any better. They don't want that in as competition for their own agro business. So Ukraine's in a bad way. It's economically very damaged. Russia's also gone after food storage. There's been videos coming out of Kiev grocery stores. They're empty, except for very limited selections. They're empty of a lot of things because there's no fuel. And that's another thing. Now, the way the Ukrainians were operating, they switched to using small trucks, small cargo trucks, to launch drones. So these Gazelle trucks, which have a box in the back of them, for transport, and they'd store 2 drones in each of these boxes, cut out one side of it, and they drive up close to the border, shoot off their 2 drones, and drive away really quickly. These are, at the end of the day, these are either American or Italian or British, German-built drones. At best, they're getting assembled and fueled up in Ukraine. Well, the key here is, finding these trucks is hard because they usually hide them underground, garages or someplace like that, or warehouses. You can't see them. But the weak spot is they all use diesel and they all use local petrol stations. So Russia started going after the petrol stations. And then just Kharkov and Sumy Oblast, there's been 400 destroyed petrol stations. And once that's moved on, once they've cleared that field of petrol stations, they've started moving further and further. In Zaporozhye, in Dnipropetrovsk, in Kiev, in Chernigov, all of these oblasts, one gas station after another, one petrol station after another is being destroyed. Well, this creates, by the way, massive problems for the local economy on top of that. You can't get goods into stores. You can't get food in because there's no petrol trucks. So since America decided to go after Russia's economy, Russia's responded, so far at least only in Ukraine, but Russia's responded by upping the ante quite a bit. Russia's escalated much stronger, much higher than the U.S. was anticipating. I don't know what the hell the U.S. was thinking. Well, I know what they're thinking. They project their own weaknesses onto everyone else. Americans can't get their stuff on eBay or off of Amazon. They started squirming. They started getting pissed off. They'll go to the streets if it's bad enough. Russians are like, yeah, okay. Yeah, that sucks, sons of bitches. And we go on. If you consider everything that Russia's been through for the last, let's just say since 1905 revolution, 1914 World War I starts, 1917 the first liberal revolution in February, then the Bolshevik Revolution in October, which wasn't really a revolution. It came in and just took power. The liberals had already run or switched sides. The Civil War, the Red Terror, the Stalin's purges, World War II. Uh, the stagflation of the 80s, or stagnation of the 70s, 80s, the total collapse of the 90s, the two Chechen civil wars in Russia South. We could go on and go on. Any other
2010, if I'm not mistaken.
right? The last one ended in actually not 2010. The last one ended in 2002, 2003. That second one was the Russian army fought very differently. It was ready under Putin and fought very viciously, and that broke the. And by most of those Chechen rebels weren't Chechens. They were Arabs. They were Indonesians. It was Sunni Jihad International, and the U.S. was pumping them in. The UK was pumping them in from all over the world. Same thing we saw in Syria. We didn't have names like Al Qaeda. We didn't have names like IGIL or ISIS or whatever else they want to call themselves. But we had that effect, and the same thing we've seen in Syria. Same thing we've seen some incursions in Iran from the same types of groups. These are basically they're Salafites, and they're America's how else to put it? America's whores. Half these people, to even call them Muslim is a stretch, but they're really good head choppers. They really like raping and murdering. Hey, it's a sport. And getting rich off of it if you can. So they get shipped around everywhere. They popped up in Afghanistan. They still hold one province in Afghanistan. I mean, they popped up in Libya. Wherever the U.S. needs them, they pump them out there. Wherever Israel needs them, it's the same group all over there. I mean, at one point they even popped up in the Philippines. Remember that when all of a sudden there was thousands of them that showed up in the Philippines. What was the president of the Philippines at that point? They arrested him for being too tough on drug dealers. He's former president. I cannot remember his name right off the top of my head right now. But yeah, so these guys, I mean, wherever the U.S. needs them to pressure somebody, they just pop them into that area. And all of a sudden you got, you've got psychopaths running around murdering civilians. And they don't really care which religion those civilians have. They kill them just all the same, rape and murder and pillage, because that's what they're good for. They're human murder machines. So yeah, I mean, Russia survived all of this. So to think that the Russian public is going to bend and fold because they can't get their sea cucumber sludge cream.
He was Benigno Aquino, something like
that. No. It was.
Rodrigo.
He's just been arrested and sent to for trial to Europe, I think, which is ridiculous. He was
what year was that?
90s.
Yeah.
Beginning of 2000s. Duterte, Rodrigo Duterte. That's the name. Yeah. He was arrested recently and deported to stand trial in the West for things that he did in his country. In his country, the things he did was he executed drug dealers, and he crushed that Salafist jihad that got launched. So yeah, this is the ludicrous level of so-called international law. First of all, they have no right to try him, But the Philippines have become an American colony again, so yeah, they'll do whatever they're told. Even though America genocided 20% of the Philippine population when it was conquering them. By the way, Filipinos don't know their own history. That's been cut out of their textbooks. When the U.S. grabbed the Philippines from the Spanish, they looked at the Filipinos as half man, half devil, half child, half devil, as is what they called them. General Smith said that, first of all, the Filipinos are Catholics and the Americans are Protestants, so they were already looking at them as undesirables. They wanted the land, they didn't want the people. So General Smith, who's commanding the expeditionary forces in the Philippines, said, we have to kill every boy 10 years or older because they'll never be loyal to us. Think of that through. They didn't kill 50%. Their aim was to cut the population in half, kill 50%. They didn't kill 50%, but they did kill 20%. They had concentration camps. They were called relocation camps or concentration camps. And they genocided a very large chunk of the population of the Philippines. And that, by the way, as the Philippines were a colony and the U.S. owned them, That was all cut out of the Filipino history books. You can find it on the net or any decent history book. But the Philippines I've talked, they have no idea about that. They don't know their own history. It's been manipulated. So Soros wasn't alive back then, but his soulmates were.